guys, it is C and Nash, and happy Friday. Once again, we're making it through. Happy May, but most importantly, happy Mental Health Month. How you guys been doing? I've been doing well. It's been a great week. It's been a very, very great week. There's been a lot of surprises. It's been a lot of excitement, a lot of blessings. So let's continue to truck along. So we are doing the We Need to Talk series, right? Which is laying the foundation of communication styles. Before we can even continue and really get into the depth of mental health, I want to lay down the foundation of communication. Last week, we spoke about passive communication. Just to do a recap, passive communication is when we fail to acknowledge our rights, and we fail to acknowledge our thoughts and our feelings and our needs. We're very considerate of that other person. However, we do it at our own expense. So there's a lot of positives, but there's also a lot of drawbacks to that. And again, if we think about passive communication, we think of it as I lose, you win. And that can cause feelings of resentment, but also it can cause feelings of today's topic, where we swing into the other end of the spectrum and we go into aggressive communication style, where we're actually seeing ourselves attack the other person. So think of aggressive communication style where I win, you lose. And I'm gonna do a lot of this, okay, because this all comes into play. You'll figure out later. All right, so aggressive communication style, the definition is, when you think about it, the definition of aggressive is when we do a wonderful job of acknowledging our feelings and our thoughts. However, we are either attacking someone else, we are invalidating someone else, or we are infringing on someone else's rights. That's what aggressive communication style is. So we are, while we're great at expressing ourselves, it's at the expense of someone else. I do want to go back and I want to slow it down, and I want to really stress this last part, just because aggressive communication styles, there's a lot of different levels. Today I want to talk about some of the more blatant styles or signs that you may see with aggressive communication style, but there are also some atypical or some not in your face subtle signs of aggressive communication style. So I want to go back to this part of the definition, which says that we fail to acknowledge or validate other people's thoughts or feelings or their needs. Okay, so let's put a pin in that one, because we're going to come back to it later. So as far as aggressive communication styles, that is considered to be like the bully type of style, the attacker type of style. Okay, so now I want to go over some of the blatant signs of aggressive communication styles. One being that that person may try to dominate that other person. Again, this is going back to the definition of aggressive communication style, is when we acknowledge our own rights, but it's at the expense of someone else. So when it comes to this particular style, we dominate that conversation because we dominate that person. We want the conversation to sway our way. Another thing, it goes into manipulation. This style has a lot of manipulative tactics. And I want to break that word manipulation down, just because the root of manipulation deals with influence. Okay, I'm a firm believer that every single trait, given the right dose to the right person in the right setting in the right time, can actually be it can be either something positive, can be a strength, or it can be something negative. It can be an area that you need to improve. So if we go to the root of manipulation is influence, on one aspect of manipulation, one aspect of influence is persuasiveness. However, on the opposite end of influence is manipulation. Essentially, you're trying to influence that situation. You're trying to influence that person, but you're doing it in an unhealthy manner, which comes into play with manipulation. Another thing you may find with this particular style is that people who exhibit this style, they may struggle with tolerance. They may have a low frustration tolerance level. They are quick to get it out. They ain't got time. I ain't got time. I don't have time. So that may come into play. Also, they may struggle to listen. So when it comes to passive communication, that person is a great listener. Well, on the opposite aspect, when it comes to aggressive communication style, that person may struggle to listen just because If you think about it, it is, again, it's all about making sure my needs are getting met. So anything that you may say that's not fulfilling my needs, I don't have time for it, and I don't want to listen to it. So those are some other things. The person who displays communication styles such as aggression or aggressive communication styles may also struggle with accepting feedback or criticism. I want to break that down. I'm going to give the more blatant signs of that, but I do want to continue talking about that because that acceptance bit comes into play with other forms of aggression. So that person may be really, really quick and maybe really, really good at pointing out the mistakes and the flaws of other people, just because, again, with aggression, it's about my needs. So I'm okay, you're not. I'm good, you're not. I'm right, you're wrong. And so anytime that other person tries to present constructive criticism back to them, it's not well received, just because they feel they're justified. That person who has aggressive communication styles, they honestly feel they're justified to do what they do and to say what they say, because at the end of the day, the means really does justify the end. The end is, I want to make sure that my needs are getting met. The result in the journey is, I will do whatever it takes, including shutting you down, to make sure my needs are getting met. Interesting enough, to kind of give a background, it is not uncommon for a person who is displaying aggressive communication style to have also actually had some type of trauma, had some type of abuse, or been in some situation that was outside of their control, i.e. they have been a victim. Going back to that definition of victim, they actually were a victim. Maybe they experienced some type of trauma, some type of mental, emotional, physical, or sexual abuse, a situation that was outside of their control. And to rectify that, to balance that out, even though they weren't in control of that situation, or even if they're dealing with a situation where they cannot control. Let's say it is a kid, is a teenager who is having to witness domestic violence in their home. They can't control that situation. However, they can look for opportunities in which they can exert control. So, well, I may not be able to control my parents fighting in front of me. I can go to school and choose to react, respond, or unfortunately assault you or attack you, because I can control those things. So that's a very interesting thing about the aggressive communication style, and the people who may find themselves exhibiting that particular style, where before you can get to me, I'm going to get to you. Again, it goes to a matter of control. If we were to think about passive communication, again, I said that goes back to the root being self-esteem. A lot of times it deals with self-esteem. And the root emotion with passive communication is worthiness. People struggle to feel like they're worthy. Well, when it comes to aggressive communication style, the root of it still deals with self-esteem, but the root emotion is fear. Okay? And fear causes, with all of us, it goes into a fight, flight, or freeze. When it comes to aggressive communication style, people are choosing to fight. And they're going to fight even at the expense of hurting you, just because they do not want to be hurt themselves. So those are some signs, and I do want to break down the root of that. Let's see, some positive aspects. And yes, there are positive aspects with this type of communication style. These people are actually very direct, and they're great when it comes to conflict, in the sense of meaning it dead on. So you know how we said, like, passive communication style, how that person is like not even in the building? No. Okay, this is the exact opposite for someone who chooses to use aggressive communication style. They're in the building. They're in the room. And you know what? They're ready. Whether they stay on ready. This person, when it comes to any kind of conflict, when it comes to any kind of issue, they're going to face it dead on, which can actually be admirable. It can actually be seen as inspirational to others, just because they are so good at expressing themselves. They're so direct. You never have to guess what they're thinking. You never have to guess what's going on, because they're going to let you know each and every time. I have this issue. This is my problem. However, it is at the expense of someone else, but they do a wonderful job of expressing themselves and making sure that their needs are getting met. So in that aspect, it's something that everyone can learn from. However, the downside again is they're considering their needs at the expense of someone else. So as long as their need is getting met, it doesn't matter about the other person. In fact, they're not thinking about the other person, whether it's intentional or not, just because they're so focused on making sure that their need is being met. Some key statements to consider that indicate aggressive communication style is, keep in mind, again, aggressive communication looks differently. It's a lot of layers with aggression, but this part is actually the same across the board. Is when we display aggressive communication styles, we tend to use the word you a lot. There's no we, there's no I, there's no me. It's all you. Okay, I'm pointing the finger at you because it's all about you, but it's not all about you in the way you want. It's all about you, and you're always wrong. You never do anything right. This is your fault. That's because again, that person who demonstrates that particular style, they're unable to see any kind of wrongdoing on their part. They feel justified to do what they do. So because you made me do this, this is why I attack you, because you made me do this. It's all your fault. So we use a lot of you statements when we're dealing with this particular communication style. So that person is going to be able to acknowledge everything you do wrong. However, they're not going to acknowledge anything they do wrong. So it also looks like in the form of, it's my way, my need. This is what I want to do. This is what we're going to do. There's also, this is what you are not going to do. So anytime they use the you, too, it also can be they're telling you what you're going or not going to do. What you're not going to do is, that actually is a form of aggressive communication, because you're telling that person what they're going to do when you have no control over that other person. You know, in this particular picture where she is coming at, poor old guy, poor him, look at him, he's sweating. Look at, let's somebody loosen up his tie, because he's stressed, he's scared. So that's actually what aggressive communication style looks like. Is we're attacking that other person, and when we attack, we actually put that person at a disadvantage, because we're so focused on making sure we're taken care of. We actually put that person on an uneven ground. We become the perpetrator. We become the attacker. Regardless if we're justified in what we do or what we say, we actually are at fault in this situation. So in this particular one, it is still unfair, because it says, I win, but you lose. If at any point you have to shut somebody down, not acknowledge that person because you want to feel acknowledged, you're going about it the wrong way, and you need to take a step back and reevaluate your methods. Just because at the end of the day, you have every right to express yourself, but guess what? They have every right to do the same. So I do want to wrap up by leaving some tips to be more assertive if you find yourself using aggressive communication style. So again, the beauty about aggressive communication style is that you are acknowledging and you're expressing yourself. That is absolutely wonderful. However, it should not be at the expense of someone else. So my first encouragement for you is to, one, take accountability of your actions, because at the end of the day, again, we cannot control other people, but we can control ourselves. It is okay to acknowledge yourself. It is never okay to acknowledge how you feel and what you think and validate yourself at the expense of someone else. If you find yourself shutting people down, putting people down, belittling other people just to make yourself feel okay, there's an issue with that. If there's ever a point where you have to, in order to protect yourself, you have to go after someone else and attack someone else, and it's not, like I said, it's not defense, we're attacking someone, check into that, because there is a problem with that. Another thing is, it's okay And in fact, I highly encourage you to acknowledge that other person's thoughts, feelings, and needs. Here's the thing, a lot of times in relationships and friendships and interactions, we feel that in order to maintain peace, we have to agree with what they're saying. And I will never say you have to agree with someone 100% of the time. However, I'm a firm believer in acknowledging and validating that other person. You don't have to agree with them in order to recognize that they're a human being and that they have their own rights, you know? So it goes a long way to acknowledge and to say, you know what, I don't agree, but I get you. You know what, I don't, that's not my opinion, but okay, that's your opinion. We're good, you know. Acknowledging that other person. Also, apologizing. Apologizing goes a long way. Again, something similar to what I just said. Sometimes we feel like when we apologize, it's to say that I'm wrong, you're right. And that's not necessarily the case. When it comes to relationships, when it comes to interactions and friendships, apologizing goes a long way because it's not necessarily saying that you're right, I'm wrong. It's saying that, you know what, I care about you and I care about this relationship so much that I'm willing to apologize. I'm willing to humble myself. And that's what we definitely have to do when we deal with this particular communication style. When it comes to aggression, because we're putting other people at a disadvantage and we're up here, sometimes we have to humble ourselves to level the field. So sometimes apologizing is a level of humility that we need in order to make sure that that relationship flows. If you have been a victim and you know how paralyzing it may be to have circumstances that are beyond your control, don't remove control. Don't violate someone else just because you want to express yourself. Be considerate, you know, in fact, show even more compassion and sympathy just because you personally have firsthand experience of what it feels like to be a victim, and choose not to subject someone else to that same feeling, especially if it's unnecessary. So again, I want to use today to talk about the more blatant signs of aggression. However, aggression is very, very tricky. Next week, I'm going to talk about some of the not so in your face signs of aggression, just because it's still aggression. It just looks a little bit differently. We're going to talk about passive aggression, and we're going to spend some time with that just because it's, out of all the communication styles, it is probably the trickiest, but it's actually the most harmful one. And I want us to continue going. Again, this is not about shame. This is about accountability. Again, if you're watching this video, I encourage you to watch it for yourself, okay? And we're going to continue. So until next time, God bless.